Hello, everybody, and welcome to Feel Good Friday on Church at Home with Rachel. It's the 6th of December, and as we gather this day, I believe that this is a day that many in Quebec will be remembering the Montreal Massacre, and so it's not a Feel Good Friday for that. It is also the day before my 25th anniversary of my ordination to the priesthood. I was ordained a priest on December 7th. 1999, and a cold and wintry, blustery evening at St. James Anglican Church in Stratford, Ontario, with several of my seminarians colleagues. But so that will be tomorrow. But I won't be here tomorrow, so I just wanted to send that out there and say it's been a pleasure to spend 25 years as a priest, and now as a bishop, and it feels good to know that good ministry has been done by many of us for so long. So there you go. The feel good, the feel good part of today isn't a giddy ha ha thing. It's more of a recognition of how good it feels to be following the leading of the Holy Spirit, to really pay attention. You see, I'm really coming in my role as bishop here. I'm becoming more and more aware that God does not work in coincidences. Some people will call it serendipity, or other things, but I really believe that in God there are no such thing as coincidences. Um, Bishop Joe Bailey Wells, who is a phenomenal bishop, some of my African colleagues kept calling her Lady Bishop. She has been a bishop for some time, and she is the assistant to the General Secretary of the Anglican Communion Office. She is bishop to bishops, and she is phenomenal. And when we were in Canterbury, several days of our time, 6 of the days we were gathered there, we had Bible study with Bishop Joe. And she walked us through specific Bible passages that talk about different styles of leadership: Moses and James and Ruth and Bartholomew and Judith. I think there was another one. There was is Isaiah as well. And one of the things she talked about, especially the very first one with Moses, is that nothing is by chance. That the experiences that we have, even the really difficult ones, even the ones that feel like they're the hardest, the ones that we really struggle to figure out, why did I have to go through that? From the beginning, God allows us or leads us into, or even plants these things in our lives because they will be needed at some point later. We may not know now why, but we will later. And she talks about all of the events that we think about Moses and his leadership and being called at the burning bush. And she said she challenged us to look back and say, think about all of the things that happened before that, right up to the very beginning when Moses was placed in that in the bulrushes in the basket, and Pharaoh's daughter found him. He was then raised. Pharaoh's daughter gave him back to his mother to be his wet nurse, to raise him up that way. But he was raised both among his own people, but he was also then taken into the courts and lived as Pharaoh's own child. And he was able then to learn what it was to live in that world with the hoity-toity, so to speak, the upper crust, but also to learn, how did Pharaoh work? What were the things that would need to be done? Can you imagine if Moses had never had the experience of living in Pharaoh's court and getting to know Pharaoh, having a relationship with him, a personal relationship with him, what that might have looked like if God had said at the burning bush, go back and bring my people out of slavery? Can you imagine how much more difficult it would have been? Because Moses wouldn't have been taken seriously. He would never have had an audience with Pharaoh. Really, the reason why he did get an audience with Pharaoh was because he had that relationship with Pharaoh already. And that happened because back in the early days when he was born, God put into place the opportunities for him that would eventually make sense. Things that he would need in his life now, he had way back then, whether he realized it or not. And one of the things I learned in Canterbury is that there is no such thing as coincidence. Bishop Joe's leading us through these Bible studies helped me to recognize the many, many things in my life, in my previous ministries as a deacon and a priest, but even more so as a child and as a teenager and as a young person going to university, how these what seemed like kind of weird experiences that I collected, that I just happened to find myself in, were not coincidences. They were not accidents. That I experienced these things that have now led to almost daily needing those experiences in my role as a bishop. And I think that that's important that we recognize and begin to feel good about the fact that God is at work in our lives all the time. And if we are willing to listen, if we pay attention, if we're willing to say, yep, I'll take on that challenge, I will enter into that adventure, I will reflect on what just happened, even if it was incredibly crappy. And I know that there are many of you out there who are experiencing really difficult times right now. And it's very difficult to hear me sitting in my office saying, up way up north, saying, hey, hang in there. God's in control. You can handle this. The fact is, I have been in places where I thought there was no tomorrow. Places and times when I thought, I'm not going to have a paycheck next week. How am I going to pay my rent? I have been in times when I didn't have any relationships that I could turn to and say, I need help. I need prayer. I need, like, times when I felt so very much alone. Times when I did indeed consider, is it even worth it? Is any of this worth it? So for those of you who are listening, please take heart that even though you may have been in the doldrums for years, you may be in the most difficult time of your life and it feels like it's never going to end. Please keep going on. Keep persevering, because I'm not just trying to be Pollyanna. I'm not trying to say to you that this is all going to work out for the best in the long run. Sometimes things don't work out for the best. Sometimes crap happens. Our houses burn down. We lose our jobs. Politics go sideways, and we find ourselves in societies that don't make sense. But we have choices. We have choices about how do we handle these things. And we can quit, and we can say, enough, I'm done. I'm never going to participate in life again. And yet here we are, and that's miserable. Or we can take a look and say, you know what? They can't beat me. As they sometimes say in the military, don't let the bastards grind you down. It's a it's a it's a gravelly phrase, but you know what? Don't. Don't let the difficult times dictate to you who you are. Let yourself recognize how strong you are, in that whatever crap you're facing right now, however you're being ground down right now, you're still here. You're still fighting. You may feel like you've got no ounce of energy left to fight, but you do. You absolutely do. And what you're going through now will someday give you the ability, the tools, the creativity, the experience to be able to help you get through something else later. And quite possibly will help you help someone else to get through something like this later. Because one thing I've learned over the years, the last 25, last 53 years, is it's not really about me. It's really very much about the people around me, about the people that I can help. Because if I have an experience, if I have learned something, then it's not enough for me to keep it to myself. I need to go out and share that with others and bring them hope or peace or tools or even just encouragement when the bastards are indeed trying to break them down. Now, the thing is that I wanted to talk about the feel good part is, and I'll make this quick, is that sometimes when we recognize that God doesn't allow us to have coincidences, things like that, things don't just happen by accident, then we have the opportunity to begin to recognize that we can be cognizant, we can be aware in this very moment of what's happening. And what I'd like to share with you right now is something that happened to me a week ago. Last Friday, a week ago today, I had to go to the airport in Brandon to pick up my husband. And of course, with WestJet, his plane was late. And so I was sitting and I was just reading my book in the chair waiting. And this woman came and she sat in the chair beside me. And eventually we started having some conversation. And she brought up to me, I wasn't wearing a collar and I didn't tell her I was a priest. I was just wearing like a sweatshirt or something. I didn't look bishopy or anything. But she got telling me about the fact that she's actually from Calgary and she's in Brandon because her son's in the hospital. His name is Dean and he has terminal cancer and doesn't have much time left. He's in a great deal of pain and all of the mental stuff and how he's struggling, really struggling with God, and he's angry with God, and all of these things. And she was saying to me how difficult it was for her. She didn't know how to pray for him. She didn't know what to do. And, we chatted, and I asked her, and I said, I've got people who pray. Can I add him to a prayer cycle? And she said, absolutely, that would be beautiful. And in the back of my head was this something saying, pray right now, offer to pray right now. And for those of you who know me, you'll have heard me say this before. I'm not a real evangelical kind of person. I'm not a real great, let's talk about Jesus in this moment. But this nagging was like in the back of my head, and then it was moving to the middle of my head, and then it was like right in my ear. Pray for her right now. Pray, offer to pray right now. So I thought, okay, fine, God, I get it. I'm going to pray if she wants me to. So I put it back on her and said, would you like me to pray for you? And I explained, because she looked at me kind of funny, and I explained what I do for a living and things like that. And she's like, yeah, that would be great. So we closed our eyes and we held hands right there in the airport. And I prayed for her. I prayed for her son. I prayed for her family, for her son's wife and children, and all of these things. We had a good prayer, probably lasted a few minutes. And when we were done, she was bawling, she was crying, and she was aware. She said, I need to get back to church. I need to connect with my community. Thank you for praying. And she said, I feel so much better. I don't, I don't, I did not pray that Dean would be healed. I didn't pray that some miracle would happen. I simply prayed that they would have peace, and that they would have the opportunity to see hope and grace, and that they would be able to be there for one another. And I prayed for God's peace for all of them. And that prayer was answered because she found some peace in that moment. And then when her daughter got off the plane, she was waiting for her daughter who was coming from Calgary. Her daughter got off the plane and she introduced her to me, told her I'd prayed for her, and her daughter looked at me kind of like, who the heck are you? But she did seem to recognize that her mom seemed very peaceful. And that feels good. All of the things that have led up to where I am today are the things that led me to listen to that voice in my head that said, you need to pray for this person. Get over yourself. Don't be embarrassed about praying in public. Just do it. And I did. And it changed things for her. It gave her some peace. It gave her some hope. And it changed things for me because it reminded me that who I am, all of who I am, which includes being a deacon, priest, and bishop, a Christian, most importantly, all of who I am is with me every bit of every day. And all of the experiences I've had, all of those things that have gone through, the good things and the bad that have made me who I am, have taught me to be who I am, are things that God can use right in this moment. So as you head into your weekend, I pray that you will understand and recognize that even when things are absolute crap, even when you can't figure out how to pay your rent, or your kids hate you, or the doctor has said you need to come in and talk to me right now, even when you feel like you're being persecuted by your own government, when you feel like you're scared about what's going to happen next and you're terrified, recognize that everything that you have been through in your life has brought you to where you are right now. And none of it's a coincidence. None of it's by accident. You can use the things, the experiences, the challenges, and the triumphs you've had in your life before to bring you to who God is calling you to be today, and to help other people as well. And that is truly something to feel good about. I hope that you have a good weekend. I hope that you have a beautiful, wonderful, joyous weekend. And if that can't happen, then I hope you find some peace. I invite you to join me for Gospel on the Go on Sunday, and I'll be back on Monday for Church at Home with Rachael. And for those of you who are in the cold snap right now, it's minus 19 degrees here in Brandon as I record this. Stay warm, wear your mitts and your toques and all those things to keep the frostbite from happening. But God bless you and keep you. And always remember, you are not alone. You are loved. As I tell the kids at camp, your bishop loves you. God bless everybody.